Hello, and welcome back. Tonight we are going to walk a very long road. Not a highway, not a stadium tunnel with flashing lights and cameras. Just a dusty path in ancient Greece. The sun is barely rising. The air is cool. The cicadas are still quiet. And somewhere ahead, beyond olive trees and low hills, stands Olympia. Imagine you are walking toward it. Your sandals scrape against dry earth. Your bag is light, maybe a small cloak, a bit of food, oil for your skin. You have trained for years for this journey. Years of running, lifting stones, wrestling in the dirt. And now, finally, you are here. Almost. There are no gold medals waiting for you. No endorsements. No slow-motion replays. Only honor. Only the eyes of the gods. And maybe, if you are very lucky, your name remembered. This is the ancient Olympic Games. And before the cheering, before the racing, before the dust and sweat and bruises, there is this road. The road to Olympia. You are not alone on it. Ahead of you, another athlete walks with his trainer. Behind you, a small group from another city-state laughs quietly. Everyone pretends to be calm. No one wants to show fear, but everyone feels it. Because this is not just sport. This is sacred. Every 4 years, men from across the Greek world traveled to Olympia. From Athens, from Sparta, from Corinth, from places separated by mountains and sea. Sometimes even from cities that were technically enemies. Wars would pause. Fighting would stop. A truce was declared so that athletes and spectators could travel safely. Think about that for a moment. An entire region pressing pause on war for a foot race. That alone tells you something about how much this mattered. As you walk, the sun climbs higher. Dust sticks to your legs. You start to hear more voices now. Merchants with carts. Pilgrims. Poets. Philosophers who have come not to compete, but to watch. Olympia was not just a sports venue. It was a gathering of the Greek world. Ideas were exchanged. Alliances were formed. News spread. But you are not here for politics. You are here to test your body, and maybe your soul. When the first glimpse of Olympia appears between the trees, it is not a giant marble stadium like we imagine today. It is a sanctuary, sacred ground. The temple of Zeus stands tall, white and powerful in the sunlight. Smoke rises gently from altars where animals are sacrificed. The smell is strong, earthy, real. This is not entertainment. This is religion. The games were held in honor of Zeus, king of the gods. Every sprint, every throw, every punch was, in a way, an offering. To compete was to show the gods what the human body could do. To win was to prove that the gods had smiled on you. No pressure. You enter the sanctuary quietly. Even the loudest men lower their voices here. There is something about sacred space that makes people smaller. You feel it in your chest. A mix of excitement and humility. You trained so hard. You believe you are strong. But now, standing in the shadow of a massive temple dedicated to Zeus, you feel very human. Very breakable. You pass other athletes. Some are enormous. Thick arms. Scarred knuckles. Calm eyes. Others look younger than you expected. Lean runners with sharp faces. No one smiles too much. This is not the place for jokes. Well, maybe just a small one. Your trainer leans in and says, "At least you won't have to fight a lion." You nod. That is true. Mostly. Before any competition begins, all athletes must swear an oath. They gather before a statue of Zeus. Hands raised, voices serious. They promise to compete honestly, to respect the rules, to have trained properly. Imagine that moment. Hundreds of men, standing together, promising fairness in a world that is often not fair at all. You repeat the words carefully. You feel the weight of them. Cheating is not just breaking a rule here. It is insulting the gods. And the Greeks believed very strongly that insulting the gods was not a great long-term strategy. After the oath, you finally see the stadium. It is simple, a long stretch of packed earth. No fancy seats. Spectators will sit on grassy banks. The starting line is just a carved groove in stone. That is it. And yet, your heart begins to race just looking at it. Because that strip of earth is where everything changes. You think about home, about your father teaching you how to run, about your mother watching from a distance during training, about the pride in your city if you win. Victors did not receive gold medals here. They received a simple olive wreath, a crown made from sacred olive branches. Sounds small, right? But when you returned home wearing that wreath, you were treated like a hero. Free meals for life, front row seats at events, poems written about you, sometimes even a statue in your honor. Immortality, in a way, all for a race that lasts less than a minute. You walk along the edge of the stadium and sit. The ground is warm now. The noise of the crowd grows as more people arrive. You hear accents from different regions. You smell roasted meat from sacrifices. You see children staring at the athletes with wide eyes. Maybe one of them will stand where you are sitting in 4 years. Or maybe not. You close your eyes for a moment. You feel the breeze on your skin. You notice the quiet rhythm of your breathing. This is the calm before the storm. The strange stillness that always comes before something important. What did ancient competitors feel in moments like this? Probably the same things we feel today before a big test, a big speech, a big leap. Fear, hope, doubt. A small voice whispering, "What if you fail?" And a louder one answering, "What if you don't?" The ancient Olympic Games were not about comfort. They were not about participation trophies. They were about excellence, about pushing the human body to its limit in front of your community and your gods. But right now, sitting here in the warm Greek sun, it is not glory you feel most strongly. It is vulnerability. You have walked the long road to Olympia. You have sworn your oath. You have seen the sacred temple and the simple stadium. Soon you will step to that starting line. And in that quiet space between the signal and the first step forward, you will feel something that connects you to every competitor across time. A simple human truth. You want to matter. And tomorrow, when the race begins, we will see what that desire truly costs. Chapter 2: The Sacred Origins of the Games. Before there were races, before there were bruises and cheers and olive crowns, there was a god. His name was Zeus. And if you were a Greek living 2,500 years ago, that name was not symbolic. It was not poetic. It was not myth in the modern sense. It was real. Zeus was the sky, the thunder, the law, the judge of oaths, the one who could reward or destroy without warning. Lightning bolts were not just weather. They were messages. So when the Olympic Games were held, they were not simply organized events. They were a festival in honor of Zeus himself. That changes the mood quite a bit, doesn't it? Because suddenly, winning is not just about being faster than the man next to you. It is about pleasing the king of the gods. The games were held in a sacred place called Olympia. But Olympia was not a city in the way we think of cities. People did not live there year-round. It was a sanctuary, a holy ground filled with temples, altars, statues, and treasuries built by different Greek city-states. Imagine walking through it slowly, white stone glowing in the sun, bronze statues of past victors lining the pathways, offering stacked high shields, weapons, carved figures, gifts to the gods. And at the heart of it all stood the great temple of Zeus. Inside was a massive statue of him, seated, calm and powerful, made of ivory and gold, so large that visitors said if Zeus stood up, he would break through the roof. Subtle. The message was clear. This place belongs to him. Now here is something fascinating. The Olympic Games may have begun as early as 776 BCE. That is the first recorded date. But even then, the Greeks believed the tradition was far older. Some said the hero Heracles founded the games. Others believed they were created by kings honoring Zeus after victory in war. In other words, even the origin story had layers. But one thing stayed constant. The games were religious. Before any athlete could compete, sacrifices were made. Animals, usually oxen, were offered at the altar. Smoke rose into the sky. Prayers were spoken aloud. The smell was strong. Not exactly aromatherapy, but sacred in its own way. For the Greeks, sacrifice was not about cruelty. It was about exchange. You give something valuable to the gods. In return, you hope for favor. So imagine being an athlete standing nearby. You hear the chanting. You see the smoke curling upward. You know that in a few days you will step into the stadium. And your performance will be watched not only by thousands of people, but by Zeus. No pressure, just divine judgment. This sacred atmosphere shaped everything about how competitors felt. They were not just proving themselves to other men. They were stepping into a ritual that connected them to generations before them. Fathers, grandfathers, heroes. There was also something called the Olympic truce, the Ekakeria. In a land constantly divided by rivalries and wars, this was extraordinary. When the games approached, messengers traveled across Greece announcing the truce. For a set period, fighting had to stop. Armies stood down. Safe passage was granted to athletes and spectators traveling to Olympia. Think about that. In a time when conflict was normal, sport created peace. Even if temporary, that alone tells you how sacred the games were. No city-state wanted to anger Zeus by violating the truce. Because again, lightning bolts. For competitors, the truce meant something deeply emotional. It meant they could travel without fear. It meant their enemies might be sitting beside them in the stands, watching the same race. It meant that for a brief moment they were not Athenians or Spartans or Corinthians. They were Greeks, and that shared identity mattered. Standing in Olympia during the festival must have felt almost dreamlike. You could see banners and offerings from dozens of city-states. You could hear different dialects. You could meet people you might otherwise only face on a battlefield. And yet, beneath that unity, rivalry still burned quietly. Because when the race began, you did not run for Greece. You ran for your polis, your city. If you won, your city gained honor. If you lost, your city lost face. That weight pressed down on every competitor. The games were sacred, yes, but they were also political. And pride is a powerful motivator. But let's slow down for a moment. Picture an athlete standing alone near the temple at dusk. The crowds have quieted. The sacrifices are done for the day. The sky turns orange, then purple. The statue of Zeus glows faintly in the fading light. What might he be thinking? Maybe he is replaying years of training in his mind. Maybe he is whispering a private prayer. Maybe he is bargaining. If I win, I will dedicate a statue. I will bring offerings. I will honor you. Or maybe, if he is honest, he is afraid. Because when you believe the gods are watching, failure feels heavier. But here is the beautiful part. The sacred nature of the games also gave meaning to effort itself. Even if you did not win, you had stood in a holy place and tested yourself honestly. You had participated in something older and larger than your own life, that mattered in a world where legacy and memory were everything. The ancient Greeks did not chase medals. They chased Clio's glory, the kind of glory that survives death, the kind poets sing about. And Olympia was one of the few places where an ordinary man could touch that kind of immortality. All he had to do was outrun, outfight, or outlast everyone else. Simple. So as night settles over Olympia and torches flicker against stone, the sanctuary breathes quietly. Tomorrow, the competitions will begin. Muscles will strain. Dust will rise. Crowds will roar. But tonight, it is still sacred silence. And somewhere beneath the stars, an athlete looks up at the sky and wonders if Zeus is looking back. Chapter 3. Who could compete? And who couldn't? Now that we understand the sacred feeling of Olympia, we need to ask a simple question. Who was actually allowed to stand on that starting line? Because the ancient Olympic Games were not open to everyone. Not even close. To compete, you had to be a free Greek man. That was the rule. Not Persian. Not Egyptian. Not Roman in the early centuries. And not a slave. If you were not considered ethnically Greek and legally free, you could not enter the games. Olympia was sacred and also very exclusive. So imagine again our athlete from the road. He is not just strong. He is not just trained. He belongs. His identity matters. His citizenship matters. His freedom matters. In ancient Greece, identity was everything. You did not say, "I am from Greece." You said, "I am Athenian," or "I am Spartan," or "I am from Corinth." Your polis, your city-state, shaped your education, your values, your training style, even your personality. An Athenian athlete might be proud of balance and grace. A Spartan athlete? Let's just say subtlety was not always their top priority. Sparta trained boys from a young age in harsh physical systems, discipline, endurance, pain tolerance. So when a Spartan arrived at Olympia, other competitors noticed. The reputation alone was intimidating. But even so, the games were technically neutral ground. Once inside Olympia, you stood as an individual. Well, mostly, because if you won, your city celebrated. If you lost badly, your city remembered that too. Honor was shared. Shame was shared. Victory did not belong only to you. It belonged to everyone who raised you, and that pressure was heavy. Imagine being a young competitor. Maybe this is your first games. Your father competed years ago and lost. Your older brother tried and failed. Now all eyes are on you. No anxiety there, just a few thousand expectations. And then there were those who could not compete. Women were not allowed to participate in the Olympic Games, not as athletes, and married women were even banned from watching the events, at least officially. Unmarried girls were sometimes permitted to observe, but married women, the rules were strict. There is even a story that if a married woman was caught sneaking into the stadium, the punishment could be severe. Whether this was always enforced is debated, but the message was clear. The Olympic arena was a male space, and yet history is rarely that simple. Women were not completely absent from the story. There were separate games for women called the Heraean Games, held in honor of Hera, the wife of Zeus. These events included foot races for young women. The winners also received crowns, though the spotlight was smaller. In Sparta, girls trained physically alongside boys. Spartan women were known for strength and confidence. They could own property. They spoke boldly. So while they could not run in the Olympic Stadium, they were not silent figures in society. And here is a surprising detail. In chariot racing, women could be listed as the official owners of the team. Even though they did not drive the chariot themselves, if their horses won, they were recorded as victors. One famous example is Caniska, a Spartan princess who became the first woman recorded as an Olympic victor. She did not stand in the dust holding reins, but her name was carved into history. So while the games excluded many, they also had cracks in the system. Small openings where tradition bent slightly. But for the average man, just being eligible to compete was a privilege. Slaves, for example, trained bodies that were just as strong, maybe stronger. They worked fields. They lifted stones. They endured hardship daily. But without freedom, they could not step into the arena. Freedom mattered. Citizenship mattered. Birth mattered. The Olympic Games reflected the values of Greek society and its limits. Now let's imagine the emotional side again. You are a free Greek man. You have trained for years. You stand among other competitors. Around you are men from cities you have only heard about in stories. Accents differ. Body types differ. Training styles differ. But everyone here shares one thing. They earned the right to stand here. That knowledge creates a strange kind of respect. You might hate Sparta politically. You might argue with Athens philosophically. But in this space, you recognize something shared. Effort. And yet, beneath that shared respect is competition. Because only one name will be remembered. Only one will receive the olive wreath. Everyone else will fade quietly into the crowd. That reality shaped how competitors felt long before the race began. Excitement, yes, but also awareness. Awareness that this was not participation. This was elimination. And maybe that is why the games felt so intense. There were no second-place medals. No bronze for great effort. Victory meant everything. Defeat meant anonymity. Imagine training for 4 years. traveling for days, swearing an oath before Zeus, only to finish second. History would not record you. Your grandchildren might remember, but the wider world, no. And that truth sat heavily on every athlete's shoulders. Still, they came, year after year, because the chance, even the smallest chance, to be remembered forever was worth the risk of being forgotten. As night settles again over Olympia, torches flicker along stone paths. Competitors rest in simple tents or shared spaces. Some whisper, some stare at the stars. Some pretend they are not nervous. Tomorrow, identity will meet action. Tomorrow, belonging will be tested. And only those allowed to stand on that sacred earth will discover whether they truly deserve to be there. Chapter 4: The Athlete's Life Before Glory. Before the road to Olympia, before the oath to Zeus, before the crowd and the dust and the thunder of feet, there were mornings, very early mornings, long before sunrise, when the air was cold and the world was quiet. An athlete would wake up. No alarm clock, no motivational playlist, just discipline. Training for the ancient Olympic Games did not begin a few weeks before the event. It began years earlier, sometimes in childhood. If you were serious about competing, you trained almost every day. In the gymnasium. Now, do not picture treadmills and air conditioning. The Greek gymnasium was an open-air space, sand under your feet, columns casting long shadows, the smell of olive oil and dust. The word gymnasium actually comes from the Greek word gymnos, meaning naked. Yes, they trained without clothes. Not to make it awkward. It was practical. Clothing would get in the way during wrestling or running. And the Greeks admired the human body. Strength was not hidden. It was celebrated. So imagine young men covered in olive oil, stretching under the morning light, muscles shining. Then they would dust themselves lightly with sand. The oil protected the skin. The sand improved grip. Functional. Mostly. A trainer called a pediatribes would oversee practice. He was part coach, part mentor, part strict supervisor. If you slacked off, he noticed. If your form was weak, he corrected you. Sometimes loudly. Training depended on your event. Runners practiced explosive starts. Short sprints again and again across the sand. Learning to push hard from a standing position. No starting blocks. Just raw power. Wrestlers drilled holds. Throws. Balance. They trained to stay calm when someone twice their size tried to throw them to the ground. Boxers practiced endurance. They struck leather bags filled with grain or sand. They hardened their knuckles. They conditioned their faces to take blows. And then there was pancration, a brutal mix of wrestling and boxing. Almost no rules. No biting. No eye gouging. Everything else? Fair game. Yes, this was technically a sporting event. And yet, even in the harshest disciplines, there was structure, rhythm, repetition, improvement, day after day. Diet also mattered. Early Greek athletes mostly ate simple food. Barley bread, figs, cheese, olives. Later, meat became more common in training diets. Protein for strength. But no fancy supplements. No powdered shakes. Just food, sleep, work. And here is something important. Training was not just physical. It was mental. In ancient Greece, athletics and philosophy were not opposites. Many gymnasiums were places where thinkers gathered. You might finish wrestling practice and then hear a debate about virtue or courage. The Greeks believed in balance, strength of body and strength of mind. Even in Sparta, where training was famously harsh, endurance was not just about muscles. It was about character. Pain was something to understand, not fear. Imagine being 16 years old. Your body aching from drills. Your trainer telling you to go again. Your lungs burning. And instead of quitting, you tell yourself, this is for Olympia. Because Olympia was the dream. But not everyone trained equally. A Spartan athlete's preparation was intense from childhood. Spartan boys were raised in the agog system. Discipline. Minimal comfort. Physical hardship. An Athenian athlete might have a more balanced upbringing. Education in poetry and politics alongside sport. Different cities produced different kinds of competitors, and that added another layer of emotion. When you trained, you were not just building muscle. You were carrying your city's reputation. If Spartans were known for toughness, you had to prove it. If Athenians were known for grace, you had to embody it. Every workout was identity practice. Now imagine the final months before the games. Athletes gathered in Elis, the region near Olympia, for official preparation. They trained together under supervision to prove they were ready. You could not just show up and say, "Trust me, I'm fast." You had to demonstrate commitment. 10 months of prior training were required. 10 months. If you lied, you risked shame. And in ancient Greece, shame was powerful. It was social, public, hard to escape. So by the time an athlete stepped onto the road to Olympia, he was already hardened by years of effort. But here is the quiet truth. Even the strongest competitor had doubts. On some mornings, he woke up tired. On some days, he lost a practice match. On some nights, he wondered if someone out there was training harder. That human part never disappears. You can oil your skin. You can lift stones. You can outrun your neighbors. But you cannot fully silence the voice that asks, "Am I enough?" The athlete's life before glory was not glamorous. It was repetitive, dusty, disciplined, sometimes lonely. Friends might go to festivals while you trained. Others might relax while you ran. You sacrificed comfort for possibility. And you did it for a prize that was not gold. Just a simple wreath of olive leaves. Strange, right? But that wreath meant recognition, respect, place in memory. The Greeks believed excellence, arete, was one of the highest virtues. To reach your full potential, to push your limits, that was noble. So when an athlete stood at the starting line in Olympia, he was not just racing that day. He was racing every morning he had woken before dawn. Every bruise, every blister, every doubt he chose to ignore. And that is what made the moment powerful. Because the competition itself was short, but the preparation was years long. As the night air cools around Olympia, athletes stretch quietly in the dark, muscles tight, minds focused. Some whisper small prayers. Others simply breathe slowly. Tomorrow, training becomes reality. Tomorrow, effort meets destiny. And all those quiet mornings will finally be tested under the bright Greek sun. Chapter 5: Arriving at Olympia. By the time you finally arrive at Olympia, you are tired. Not injured, not defeated, just worn. The journey was long. Roads in ancient Greece were not smooth highways. They were rocky paths cutting through hills, forests, and dry plains. Some athletes walked. Some rode animals. Wealthier competitors might travel with servants. Others carried their own gear. But no matter how you arrived, the final stretch always felt the same. Anticipation. As you come over the last hill, the valley of Olympia opens before you. The river Alpheus glimmers nearby. Olive trees stretch quietly across the landscape. And rising from the earth like something eternal stands the sacred altar, the holy enclosure. You slow down without meaning to, because even from a distance, the place feels different. The air seems thicker, heavier with meaning. As you step closer, the sounds reach you first. Voices, hundreds of them, laughter, arguments, traders calling out prices, the bleating of animals waiting to be sacrificed, the clatter of bronze armor, the deep, low hum of a crowd gathering for something important. Olympia during the games was not silent or empty. It was alive. Vendors set up small stalls along the paths. They sold bread, olives, wine, dried fish, maybe even small clay figurines of athletes. Someone is always ready to turn history into merchandise. Children run between adults. Old men argue about which city will win the stadium race. Philosophers gather under shade, debating the meaning of virtue while glancing casually at the muscular competitors walking past. It is part festival, part marketplace, part sacred ritual. And you, as an athlete, walk through it all with a strange feeling. Everyone is looking at you, not because you are famous, but because they know what you are here to do. You pass under the entrance to the sacred grounds. The stone beneath your feet feels cool. To your left and right are treasuries, small temple-like buildings constructed by various city-states. Each one displays offerings meant to show power and devotion. It is subtle competition before the competition. Our city is stronger. No, ours is richer. Look at our statue. Look at our shield. Even before the first race, pride fills the air. As you move deeper into Olympia, you catch sight of the Temple of Zeus again. Larger now, more imposing. Smoke drifts upward from a nearby altar. The scent of burning flesh mixes with incense and dust. Sacrifices are happening constantly during the festival. Animals offered to the gods. Meat shared among attendees. Religion and community woven together in one continuous act. You pause for a moment. This is not just a sporting arena. It is holy ground. And then you see them. Other athletes. Some are stretching. Some are sitting quietly with their trainers. Others are walking slowly through the sanctuary, as if trying to absorb the energy of the place. You notice their bodies first. Thick necks, scarred forearms, powerful thighs, every muscle shaped by repetition. You cannot help it. You compare yourself. That runner looks fast. That wrestler looks heavier than you expected. That boxer's face already carries the memory of many fights. And for a brief second, doubt whispers again. But then you straighten your shoulders. You did not come here by accident. You trained. You earned this. Nearby stands a long building called the Leonidaean. Wealthier visitors stay there. But most athletes rest in simpler spaces. Tents, shared quarters, or open areas under shelter. Comfort is not the focus. You set down your small bag. You take out your oil flask. Routine is calming. You pour a little oil into your palm and rub it into your arms and legs. Slow movements. Familiar. Grounding. The scent is earthy and clean. Around you, conversations drift. Sparta sent 3 wrestlers this year. I heard the Athenian runner beat everyone in Elis. Corinth's chariot team has the best horses. Rumors move quickly. And here is something interesting. For many spectators, the games are entertainment. They cheer. They gamble. They argue. They treat it like a grand spectacle. But for you, it feels different. Because tomorrow you step into the center of that spectacle. As the day fades into evening, torches are lit along the pathways. The golden light flickers against stone columns. Shadows stretch long and dramatic. Some athletes grow quieter at night. Others become restless. You hear nervous laughter from a nearby group. A trainer gives stern advice in a low voice. Someone practices a short sprint in the dim light, just to feel their legs one more time. You walk toward the stadium entrance. It is empty now. The long dirt track lies still under the fading sky. Grass slopes upward on both sides where thousands will sit tomorrow. It looks smaller than you imagined. Strange, isn't it? After years of training, the place where everything will be decided is just a strip of earth. You step onto it gently. The ground is firm, slightly uneven. You walk the length of the stadium slowly, counting your steps, feeling the surface beneath your feet. At one end, you see the stone starting line, grooves carved into it where toes will press. You imagine lining up beside other runners, shoulders tense, breath steady, no starting pistol, just a signal, and then motion. The simplicity is almost shocking. No technology, no protective gear, no fancy shoes, just body against body, speed against speed. As darkness settles, you leave the stadium and return to your resting place. The sky above Olympia is wide and clear. Stars scatter across it like silver dust. Somewhere in the distance, music begins. Soft flute melodies drifting through the night air. The festival continues even as athletes try to sleep. You lie down on simple bedding. The ground is not soft. Your mind is not quiet. Images replay behind your closed eyes. The temple, the crowd, the other competitors, the starting line. You feel excitement. You feel fear. You feel something else too. Belonging. Because no matter what happens tomorrow, you are part of something ancient. A tradition older than your father. Older than his father. A ritual repeated every 4 years like a heartbeat in Greek history. Outside, A breeze moves gently through olive trees. Leaves rustle softly. Somewhere nearby, a horse snorts in the dark. You take one slow breath, then another. Tomorrow the games begin. Tomorrow the sacred ground will shake with running feet. And tonight, in the quiet valley of Olympia, hundreds of competitors stare into the darkness, each one wondering if, by this time tomorrow, their name will echo through history or disappear into the dust. Chapter 6: The Opening Rituals and Sacrifices. Morning arrives slowly over Olympia, not with loud music, not with announcers shouting into the air, just sunlight. Golden light spills gently across the valley. It touches the tops of olive trees first, then the temple roofs, then the long stretch of the stadium. The ground still holds a bit of coolness from the night, but the quiet does not last long. Footsteps begin. Voices rise. Animals shift restlessly near the altars. The day of ceremony has begun. Before any race is run, before any body collides in wrestling, the games must properly open. Because remember, this is not just sport. This is sacred. You wake early. You did not sleep deeply. Few athletes did. There is a tightness in your chest that feels like energy trying to escape. You sit up, stretch your arms, roll your shoulders. Your muscles feel ready. But today is not for racing. Today is for honoring the gods. You walk toward the great altar of Zeus. Already a crowd is gathering. Officials in formal robes stand near the front. Priests prepare the ritual tools. The air smells faintly of incense. Then the animals are brought forward. Usually oxen, large, powerful creatures. They are decorated. Ribbons tied around their horns. Their hides brushed clean. There is no sense of panic here. This is ritual, carefully practiced, reverent. The crowd grows quiet. A priest raises his hands and begins the prayer. The words are formal, ancient even by their standards. They call upon Zeus, king of gods, guardian of oaths, watcher of men. They ask for fair competition, for strength, for honor, for glory that does not offend the divine order. You bow your head. Even if you are not deeply religious, this moment feels heavy, serious, because when everyone around you believes something is sacred, you feel it too. The sacrifice is made. The animal falls. Smoke rises, curls into the sky in thin gray streams. The scent becomes stronger now, sharp and earthy. The Greeks believed the smoke carried the offering upward to Zeus himself. An exchange. You give. The gods respond. After the sacrifice, portions of the meat are prepared to be shared among participants and spectators. Community through ritual, food through faith. But for you, the real weight of this morning is not the smell or the ceremony. It is the oath. All athletes gather again before officials. Hands are raised. You repeat the words carefully. You swear that you have trained for the required months, that you will follow the rules, that you will compete honestly. It sounds simple, but in a world where honor defines everything, this oath is binding. If you cheat, you are not just breaking a rule. You are insulting Zeus, and that is not something people did lightly. There are statues nearby called the Zanes, bronze figures of Zeus funded by fines collected from athletes who cheated in past games. Their names were carved into the bases. Public shame, permanent reminder. Imagine walking past those statues before your event. It would make you think twice about any creative strategies. Once the formalities are complete, the mood shifts slightly. The crowd begins to buzz again. Children whisper. Merchants reopen stalls. Musicians play short, celebratory tunes. But for the athletes, something inside has settled. The waiting is over. There are no more preparations, no more rituals to complete. Now it becomes real. You move toward a shaded area with other competitors from your event. Some are silent. Some speak casually about small things, the weather, the firmness of the ground, the quality of the breakfast. No one says what they are really thinking. I am scared. Instead, someone jokes lightly. At least Zeus likes fast runners. A few nervous laughs. Humor is ancient. It has always been a way to soften fear. You glance at the stadium again. Already, spectators are climbing the grassy banks. They sit wherever they can find space. There are no assigned seats. The wealthy might have better views, but everyone is part of the same rising wave of humanity. By midday, the valley hums with life, and beneath it all, a steady heartbeat of anticipation. For you, the ritual morning has done something subtle. It has connected you to something larger than yourself. You are not just an individual chasing glory. You are part of a sacred tradition. That knowledge changes the feeling of competition. It becomes less about ego, more about meaning. When you step onto the field later, you will not just be representing your city. You will be fulfilling a ritual thousands believe matters. That belief gives your effort weight. It gives your fear purpose. As the sun climbs higher, heat settles into the valley. Dust rises gently under moving feet. The noise grows louder. The first events are about to begin. You flex your hands slowly. The rituals are complete. The gods have been honored. The smoke has risen. Now comes the test. And somewhere above, in the wide blue sky, Zeus, at least in the minds of everyone here, is watching. Chapter 7, The Stadion Race, 200 Meters of Destiny. The Stadion Race is simple. One straight stretch of packed earth. About 200 meters, a short sprint by modern standards. One length of the stadium and it's over. But simplicity does not make it easy. Not in ancient Greece. Not in Olympia. Not when the eyes of gods and mortals alike are watching. You arrive at the starting line. It's just a shallow groove carved into the stone. No blocks, no starting gun, no fancy track markings. Just earth, sand, and the resolve in your own legs. Other runners line up beside you. Some are your friends. Some are strangers. Some are terrifyingly fast-looking. Muscle taut, calves tight, shoulders poised. They have trained for years like you. Every step, every sprint, every drill leading to this moment. You glance at them, and a shiver passes through you. Not from cold, not from fear exactly, but from recognition. You are in a rare place where raw talent, human will, and divine expectation intersect. And in that intersection, everything feels magnified. The crowd is quiet, strangely, as if it understands the tension. Children lean forward. Merchants stop adjusting their goods. Even birds seem to hover briefly in the olive trees, watching. A soft breeze stirs. Dust rises in lazy spirals. You bend slightly, fingers brushing the edge of the stone groove. The track beneath your feet is firm, uneven, real. Your heartbeat quickens. You hear it loud in your own ears, or maybe it's just the wind pushing through your chest. Then there is a small pause. That moment before the signal. The one moment where time slows. Everyone knows it. You have rehearsed for it in mind and body thousands of times. But now reality presses closer. The earth seems to hold its breath. You inhale, you exhale, and then motion. Your legs explode forward. The sprint begins, and immediately everything else disappears. The chatter of the crowd, the smells of incense and smoke, the distractions of city-states, the oaths to Zeus, they all fade. Only your body, your stride, your pulse remain. You feel the push of air against your skin, the weight of your muscles propelling you, the rhythm of your heartbeat syncing with your feet pounding the earth. The runners beside you surge. Some pull ahead, some lag slightly, but for a brief, shining instant the race is pure. No strategy, no plan, no politics, just speed, pure human effort. Every step is measured, every breath controlled. You feel the power in your thighs, the coordination in your arms, the drive in your chest. Years of training converge into seconds of action. Pain flickers, subtle and familiar. In the final stretch, your legs scream, your lungs burn, but your mind is sharper than ever. You are not panicking. You are racing. You are flying. You are present in a way that life outside Olympia rarely allows. And then the finish. It is sudden, abrupt, like a heartbeat that stops and starts again. One runner crosses just ahead. Another crosses just behind. Breath ragged, muscles quivering, dust coating skin and hair. For a few moments there is silence. Then the crowd erupts. Not loud like modern stadiums, but powerful in its own way. Cheers ripple across the grassy banks. Families shout. Merchants clap. Children squeal. You collapse on your knees, inhaling air, tasting it like victory or defeat. It is hard to tell which at first, because the stadium race is more than winning or losing. It is a moment of pure confrontation with yourself, with your limits, with your preparation. And in ancient Greece, that moment carried deeper meaning. Winning the stadium could make your name remembered for generations. Losing could render you invisible in the annals of history. Every breath mattered. Every ounce of effort mattered. Every decision in that sprint mattered. And yet, even the fastest runner could not predict the outcome. The smallest stumble, the slightest misstep, the moment your concentration wavered, it could change everything. The difference between immortality and obscurity could be a fraction of a second, a misstep on the uneven ground. As you catch your breath, you notice the faces of other competitors. Some are triumphant, some are disappointed, some are exhausted beyond words. And then, a quiet moment of shared respect. Even as rivals, you understand that everyone here has carried the same burdens, trained with the same intensity, sacrificed in ways outsiders cannot imagine. You nod to a fellow runner, a small gesture, but it carries meaning, recognition, acknowledgement, humanity. Now imagine the ceremonial aftermath. The winner steps forward to receive the cotinos, the olive wreath. Simple, unassuming, yet heavier with symbolism than any gold medal. This is not about money or wealth. This is about honor, legacy, and divine approval. The poet may write of your triumph. Statues may immortalize your likeness. And in that, you achieve a kind of immortality, fleeting yet eternal in memory. Meanwhile, the others return quietly to the sidelines. Dust still clings to their skin. Legs still burn. Hearts still pound. And though history may only remember the victor, each participant carries their own story of struggle, effort, and endurance. For the Greeks, that story was just as important as the outcome. Excellence, or arete, was not only about victory. It was about striving, testing oneself, confronting fear, and reaching as far as humanly possible. And so, as the sun climbs higher over Olympia, the stadium race becomes not just an event, but a symbol. A reminder that human potential is vast, fleeting, and worth pursuing. That competition is sacred, not only because it determines winners, but because it reveals the best, and sometimes the most vulnerable parts of all who dare to compete. By the end of the race, bodies are tired, hearts full, and spirits charged. The athletes walk slowly, breathing deeply, aware that tomorrow brings new challenges. Wrestling, boxing, discus, javelin, and more. Each event demanding skill, strength, courage, and patience. But for now, this sprint has been a baptism of sorts. A first encounter with history, tradition, and the divine expectations that hover over Olympia. And perhaps, if you close your eyes, you can still feel it. The earth under your feet, the wind in your face, the rhythm of your heartbeat echoing the timeless pulse of the games themselves. A few moments later, the stadium quiets again, and the long day continues. But the story of that 200 meters, of fear, hope, and the raw thrill of being alive lingers. It becomes a memory, a whisper of glory, a seed for the next challenge. And that, in a way, is the essence of the ancient Olympic spirit. Fleeting, powerful, human, and sacred. Chapter 8: Wrestling, Boxing, and the Pancration. After the brief thrill of the stadium, the games shift. The sprint is over, and now comes the part where strength, skill, and endurance collide in more up-close and personal ways. We start with wrestling, or as the Greeks called it, pale. Imagine two men standing face to face. Sand under their feet, bodies oiled to glint in the sunlight, muscles tense. This isn't about speed anymore. This is about strategy, leverage, and sheer human strength. You can throw a punch. You can trip. You can grab, twist, and pin. And the goal? To make your opponent touch the ground with anything other than the soles of his feet. Simple, right? Not really. Wrestling is a dance. A constant push and pull. Every move requires calculation. One slip, one misjudged grip, and it's over. And the crowd watches every movement, every subtle gesture. Victory here isn't flashy. It's quiet, precise, brutal if you're honest. Then comes boxing. And by boxing, I mean bare-knuckle fighting. Gloves? Forget them. Just leather strips around your hands. More for protection than comfort. Every punch counts. Every dodge matters. Your face may swell. Your knuckles may bleed. Pain is guaranteed. But so is exhilaration. Imagine standing, fists ready, heart pounding, the opponent staring at you like he's reading your soul. One misstep and your race ends here, on the sand, under the eyes of gods and men. And finally, the pancration. This is wrestling and boxing combined, with almost no rules, no biting, no eye gouging. That's it. Everything else is fair game. It's called the ultimate test of human resilience. Only the brave, or perhaps the slightly crazy, enter this arena. You grapple, you strike, you wrestle, you throw. Sometimes it ends in a lock. Sometimes with a dramatic tumble. The audience roars at every near fall, every desperate counter. Pain is not a deterrent here. It is part of the ritual. And those who survive it walk away exhausted, bloodied, but immortal in the memory of spectators. Now, let's talk about what it feels like to be an athlete in these events. First, there's the adrenaline. Your body is screaming. Your mind is alert. Every movement is hyper-conscious. You can feel your opponent's strength, your own heartbeat, the grit of sand under your feet, the sun on your back. It's overwhelming, yet oddly meditative. You are entirely in the moment. Then there's fear. Fear of failure. Fear of injury. Fear of public humiliation. In ancient Greece, honor was everything. Losing in front of your city, your peers, your family. It could sting as much as any punch. But here's the thing. Fear sharpens the senses. Fear keeps you alive. Fear makes the adrenaline taste sweet. There's also strategy. Wrestling and pancration are as much about thinking as they are about brute force. You watch your opponent, study patterns, test balance, feel for weaknesses. Every feint, every shift of weight, every slight hesitation matters. It's a battle of mind and body simultaneously. And then humor, yes, even in combat. The Greeks, strangely enough, had a sense of play even in the fiercest fights. A wrestler might grunt dramatically, pretending to falter, then spring back with unexpected force. A boxer might shout a taunt mid-punch, more to unnerve than to amuse. Humor was a way to release tension, a way to remind yourself that even in a sacred competition, you are still human. Pain, too, is a teacher. Every bruise, every scraped knee, every swelling I carries a lesson. Tells you what works, what doesn't, what to avoid next time. And if you survive, the pain becomes a badge. A mark that you dared to challenge your limits. And spectators? They add another layer. Their cheers, gasps, and shouts rise and fall like waves. In wrestling and boxing, they are close enough to smell the sweat, to see the muscles contract, to feel the tension. They are witnesses, judges, participants in a ritual that connects everyone in the sanctuary of Olympia. Now, here's a small secret. Even the best fighters had moments of doubt. Even the strongest feared injury. Even the cleverest strategists could miscalculate. That's part of the drama. That's part of what makes these contests so human. Consider the emotional arc. You enter the arena full of confidence. Training, preparation, and pride swell inside you. Then the match begins, and suddenly everything is uncertain. You grapple, strike, evade. You feel pain, tension, and the heat of competition. And finally, the end. Victory brings relief, pride, and recognition. Defeat brings disappointment, shame, but also knowledge. Every experience builds you, shapes you, prepares you for future challenges. Pancration, especially, was a crucible. Only a few survived its intense, brutal tests to emerge victorious. Those who did were celebrated like heroes, their names carved into history. And even for those who lost, the act of entering that arena, standing toe-to-toe with the best, was itself a form of immortality. By the end of the day, the athletes are exhausted. Sand is everywhere, in hair, eyes, and clothes. Bruises bloom like dark flowers across skin. Muscles ache, lungs burn. And yet, there is also exhilaration. You have pushed your body to the limit. You have tested your courage. You have lived fully in the moment under the gaze of the gods. And as night falls, the valley of Olympia cools. Torches flicker along the paths. The sacrifices, oaths, and races have given way to quiet reflection. Athletes massage their muscles, drink water, whisper to friends, and look up at the stars. Somewhere nearby, a poet might be writing lines about the day's contests, preserving memory for future generations. In that quiet, one truth becomes clear. Wrestling, boxing, and pancration were more than contests. They were rituals, tests of human strength, will, and spirit. They were ways to measure courage, endurance, and honor. And in the minds of the Greeks, participating in them was a sacred duty, an offering of oneself to the gods and to history itself. So the next time you imagine the ancient Olympics, remember this: speed can win races, but strength, skill, courage, and the willingness to face pain, both physical and emotional, define the champions who walked the sacred grounds of Olympia. And somewhere, in the cool evening air, dust still clinging to their bodies, these men rest. Tomorrow, new events will challenge them again. New races, new struggles, new moments where human spirit meets divine expectation. But for tonight, they can breathe. They have lived fully, and in that living, they have already begun to matter. Chapter 9, the pentathlon, the complete athlete. If the stadium tests speed and wrestling, boxing, and pancration tests strength, endurance, and courage, then the pentathlon tests everything. The pentathlon is 5 events rolled into one: running, jumping, discus, javelin, and wrestling. If you want to call someone a complete athlete in ancient Greece, this is where they earned that title. There was no shortcut. You couldn't be just a sprinter or just a wrestler. To win the pentathlon, you had to be fast, strong, skilled, and strategic all at once. Imagine the morning of the pentathlon. The sun is soft, rising gently over the olive trees. You wake earlier than usual, muscles already stiff from previous day's events. Every fiber of your body knows what's coming, and yet your mind hums with anticipation. You are about to step into a test designed to push you farther than you thought possible. The first event, the stadium race. It is just like the sprint you ran before, but now your body feels the accumulation of previous exertions. Your legs are heavy, your lungs tighter. Every step requires effort, not just speed, but experience and mental preparation carry you forward. You line up, feeling the familiar groove under your toes, and sprint. Every stride counts. One misstep, one faltering breath, and the balance of the pentathlon could slip. Next comes the long jump, not the measured sandpits of modern arenas. Ancient Greek long jumpers used small weights called halteres. They held them in their hands to help with momentum and balance. You grasp them tightly, feeling their weight, feeling your own body responding to it. Then leap. For a brief moment, gravity has no claim on you. And then the ground returns, sand under your feet, a thud, a jolt. Distance is measured. Every jump is a mix of hope, technique, and raw strength. Then comes the discus, a flat, circular stone or bronze disc. You grip it, feel its weight in your hand, and spin. Technique matters here more than brute force. A single miscalculation, the disc slides, wobbles, lands poorly, and your chances falter. But when it flies true, spinning gracefully through the air, it is almost beautiful. You can almost feel the crowd's admiration, though it's the precision of your own body that matters most. Next is the javelin. The spear is light but lethal in its precision. You hold it carefully, calculating the angle, the wind, the strength needed. And then throw. The javelin arcs, cutting through air, landing farther than before. Or maybe it wobbles. Maybe it fails. You measure, adjust, throw again. Skill and patience converge. A single throw can decide the entire pentathlon. Finally, wrestling. The last test. Your body is tired. Every muscle sings a chorus of pain. Sweat drips into your eyes. And yet, you step onto the sand with the same focus as the first day you arrived in Olympia. The opponent stands across from you. He too has raced, jumped, thrown, and struggled. Both of you are exhausted, but both of you are also alive in a way that few other humans have ever been. Every grapple, every twist, every push is amplified by fatigue, skill, and desire. Winning the pentathlon requires balance, physical and mental. Strength, agility, endurance, and strategy must all meet. And yet, there is another, quieter test embedded here. How do you face yourself when your body screams to stop? When every fiber of muscle is screaming? How do you maintain focus when your mind wants to collapse under the weight of exertion? The pentathlon is also a spectacle. The crowd watches with wide eyes. Children cheer for technique, marvel at flight in the jump, gasp at the discus arc. Adults whisper bets, discuss who has the best form, debate whether Sparta or Athens will claim the ultimate honor. Every throw, every jump, every fall is measured in more than distance or speed. It is measured in awe, admiration, and memory. And humor? Yes, even here. Imagine tripping mid-javelin throw, landing in a dust cloud, only to stand and grin at the crowd. Ancient athletes had to laugh at themselves sometimes. Pride was essential, yes. Honor was everything. But humility, even tiny, quiet, humorous humility, reminded them they were human. Emotion runs deep in the pentathlon. Fear, excitement, pain, hope, pride, and doubt, all coexisting. One small miscalculation can undo hours, days, or even years of training. Yet, even the attempt is celebrated. The act of testing yourself across multiple disciplines is itself a kind of glory. By the end of the day, bodies are broken, minds are drained, but spirits are soaring. Sweat glistens in the sun. Dust clings to skin. Bruises bloom. Yet every competitor knows this is what it means to test human limits. To strive, to push, to see what is possible. And the pentathlon is the ultimate measure. Not just of physical excellence, but of courage, perseverance, and heart. When night falls over Olympia, athletes collapse in their tents or under the olive trees. They whisper quietly. They massage tired muscles. They share small jokes about a fall, a slip, a javelin that went sideways. And somewhere nearby, spectators begin to recite poems, preserving memory, celebrating courage. The pentathlon is done, but its impact lingers. Every movement, every decision, every effort is part of a tradition older than memory itself. And tomorrow, or perhaps the next day, another challenge awaits. More races, more throws, more struggles. Yet tonight, for a moment, the complete athletes of Olympia can rest. They have tested themselves across speed, strength, skill, and strategy. They have honored the gods. They have risked everything for the chance to be remembered. And in that rest, they become part of something eternal, the heartbeat of the ancient Olympic Games. Chapter 10: Chariot Racing. Speed, strategy, and spectacle. Now let's switch gears, literally. The chariot race. If the pentathlon tests the individual, the chariot race tests nerves, courage, and a very different kind of skill. Horses, speed, and strategy combine in a spectacle that could thrill, terrify, or even kill. And in ancient Olympia, it was one of the most anticipated events. The course is long, oval-shaped, rough-packed earth with tight turns that challenge both driver and horse. One wrong move, and a chariot could flip, sending horse and man tumbling into dust. Spectators lean forward, eyes wide. Children clutch each other's hands. Adults shout warnings, encouragement, and sometimes bets. You can hear a coin or two clink in eager palms. Chariot racing is not just physical. It is psychological. Every driver must know the horses, their temperament, their limits. Some horses are fast but stubborn. Others are steady but slow. The skill lies in balancing speed with control, aggression with caution. Too cautious and you lose. Too reckless and you crash. Imagine standing behind a chariot at the starting line. Horses paw the ground, nostrils flaring, muscles quivering. You grip the reins tightly. Your arms burn even before the race begins. A loud shout signals the start, and suddenly chaos erupts. Horses surge forward, chariot wheels clattering against stone and dirt. Dust rises in thick clouds, stinging eyes. The wind screams in your ears. Every second counts. Turns are the deadliest. The tight bend at the end of the course demands precise timing. Push too hard and your chariot flips. Hold back and someone else takes the lead. Spectators gasp at each wobble, each near fall. And the drivers? Every heartbeat is measured, calculated, and adrenaline-fueled. Victory here is not only about speed. It's about courage, strategy, reading the other competitors, predicting their moves, timing your own chariot's push. The difference between first and last can be mere seconds, or a spectacular crash that echoes through the valley. Humor sometimes emerges in unlikely ways. A horse might veer sideways, nudging a rival off course. Drivers shout absurd commands to their animals. Spectators laugh nervously at near misses, even as they cheer. It's chaos, beauty, and risk all rolled into one. Winning the chariot race carries immense prestige. The victor may not even have been the one in the chariot. Often, the owner of the team receives the glory, not the driver. This could allow a woman like Kaniska to claim victory in the historical record. Ownership, wealth, and strategy intertwined with physical skill. Victory was multi-layered, complex, and sometimes controversial. And the emotions? Imagine the roar of the crowd, the dust stinging your face, your heart racing in your chest. Triumph brings exhilaration beyond words. Defeat brings frustration, shame, or relief if you escaped injury. Every chariot, every wheel, every horse carries both risk and hope. The chariot race is more than sport. It is spectacle, theater, poetry in motion. And for the ancient Greeks, it embodies the same principles as other Olympic events. Courage, honor, and the chance to be remembered forever. By the end, as horses slow and drivers dismount, dust coats every body, shouts fade. The crowd cheers the victor, but quietly admires all who survived. The adrenaline ebbs, and somewhere in the valley, under olive trees and stars, athletes, drivers, and spectators reflect on the drama, the danger, and the glory they just witnessed. Chariot racing is not just about who crosses the finish line first. It is about risk, strategy, courage, and the human desire to master speed, chaos, and chance all at once. And tomorrow, new contests will rise, new champions will be crowned, and Olympia will continue to pulse with sacred energy, echoing with footsteps, cheers, and history itself. Chapter 11: The Emotional Highs and Lows of Victory and Defeat. By now, the games are in full swing. The sun burns high over Olympia. Dust clings to bodies, and sweat mixes with sand and oil. For the competitors, every day is a roller coaster of physical exertion, mental focus, and emotional intensity. But let's pause for a moment and consider something just as important as speed, strength, or skill: what it felt like to compete. The ancient Olympics were not just about who crossed the line first or who threw the javelin the farthest. They were about pride, fear, hope, shame, and the longing to be remembered. Every athlete experienced highs and lows, sometimes within a single event. You might sprint with pure exhilaration, only to fall in the wrestling match minutes later. You might land a perfect discus throw, only to have your opponent steal glory with a single extraordinary move. Imagine the feeling of victory. For a moment, the world seems to pause. Your chest rises and falls with rapid breaths, heart pounding in rhythm with the crowd's cheers. You hear shouts of your name. The olive wreath awaits. Friends and family beam with pride. You feel the weight of accomplishment, not only your own but also the honor you bring to your city-state. Sparta, Athens, Corinth, or Elis, whichever polis you hail from, your name is etched into its memory. For the Greeks, this moment transcends individual achievement. Your triumph belongs to everyone who supported you, trained you, or inspired you. Victory carries something else, subtle yet profound. A quiet connection to eternity. The poets may write your name. Statues may be erected. Stories will echo long after your muscles tire and your hair grays. For the ancient Greeks who believed in Clio's glory that survives death, this was more than pride. It was a form of immortality. One perfect moment, preserved in memory, could outlast centuries. That is a feeling unlike any modern medal can replicate. But victory is not the whole story. Defeat or even narrow loss is equally intense. The instant your opponent crosses the line before you, or pins you in wrestling, or lands the perfect throw in discus, a wave of disappointment crashes over you. It is sharp, sudden, and deeply personal. Every bruise, every misstep, every ounce of effort that fell short feels heavier than it should. And here's the reality. History will only remember the winners. Even the closest second place risks fading into obscurity. That knowledge presses down, and it is almost as painful as the physical strain of the games themselves. Yet defeat is also instructive. Ancient athletes understood this instinctively. A lost race, a failed throw, a beaten opponent. All are teachers. Pain, shame, and disappointment force reflection. How could I improve? Where did I falter? Could I have trained differently? In this way, the emotional lows are inseparable from growth. The games were not simply about surviving the day. They were about becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Each loss shaped the competitor as much as any victory. Now imagine the emotional landscape of the pentathlon. 5 events, 5 opportunities for triumph or failure. 1 false move in wrestling, 1 misjudged throw of the javelin, 1 stumble in the stadium, and your dreams of victory could collapse. Yet even a single successful event within the pentathlon provides an emotional high. You learn to celebrate small victories even amid setbacks. Ancient Greek athletes became masters of managing emotion, balancing hope with fear, excitement with focus, pride with humility. The chariot races add yet another layer. Unlike individual events, chariot racing introduces uncertainty beyond the athlete's control. Horses have minds of their own. Tracks are dangerous. One unexpected stumble, one horse balking, one while catching a stone, and victory evaporates instantly. Competitors had to face emotional tension unlike anything in other events. Courage meant controlling fear while hurtling at impossible speed. Strategy meant anticipating the unpredictable. And humility was constant because, no matter how skilled, the outcome could hinge on luck or the temperament of a horse. Spectators also shape emotion. The crowd's energy, cheers, gasps, laughter, even whispers, acts like a mirror, amplifying what the athletes feel. Victory feels more euphoric. Defeat feels more crushing. And in Olympia, where thousands gather to witness the spectacle, every heartbeat of the competitor is echoed in the crowd. This shared emotional intensity is part of why the ancient games were considered sacred. They were not just physical contests. They were human dramas played out under divine gaze. There is also the private, intimate side of emotion. Away from spectators, many athletes experience introspection. In the quiet moments between events, under the shade of olive trees or near the altar of Zeus, they reflect. Some pray, some meditate, some quietly mourn a lost opportunity. Even the strongest competitors feel doubt. Even the fastest runners question whether they could have done better. Even the most celebrated victors feel the weight of expectations and the fleeting nature of fame. Yet, There is beauty in this emotional spectrum. The Greeks believed that to fully live and compete was to embrace the highs and lows. Triumph without humility is arrogance. Defeat without reflection is waste. The games create a rhythm of life itself. Exertion, joy, struggle, learning. Every competitor participates in this sacred cycle. Let's pause to consider the smallest yet most profound detail. The olive wreath. Simple, fragile, yet it carries the emotional culmination of years of preparation. Countless early mornings, injuries, fears, and sacrifices. To where it is to have survived, excelled, and earned honor. To see it bestowed upon a rival is to recognize excellence in another, even if it stings. And in this way, emotion in the games is communal as much as personal. Pride, grief, admiration, and respect flow through everyone present. Competitors, spectators, and gods alike. Finally, the night after an event provides a pause. The valley cools, torches flicker, and bodies ache. Some athletes celebrate quietly. Some write messages or marks in the sand. Some simply stare at the stars, reflecting on their performance, imagining the poet's future verses, dreaming of legacy. Emotion lingers long after physical exertion ceases. Victory glows like firelight in memory. Defeat leaves a quiet, persistent shadow, but both shape the competitor, and both become part of the sacred story of Olympia. In essence, the highs and lows of the games are inseparable from the games themselves. They are the reason the ancient Olympics were so compelling. Physical skill, strategy, and endurance matter, yes. But what makes these competitions truly unforgettable is the emotional journey. The fear, exhilaration, pride, despair, hope, and human courage that unfold on sacred soil. Competitors live fully, moment to moment, under the eyes of gods, their city-states, and history itself. By understanding these emotions, we grasp why the games mattered. Not just for the victors, but for everyone who competed. Every heartbeat, every tear, every gasp of breath, every quiet, reflective moment contributes to a legacy far richer than any medal or crown. Olympia was not just a place of contests. It was a place of human spirit revealed in all its brilliant, fragile, exhausting, and inspiring glory. Chapter 12. How the Games Shaped Greek Society. The Olympic Games were not just a series of races, fights, and throws. They were a mirror, a reflection of ancient Greek society, values, and identity. To understand Olympia fully, we have to see it not just as a sporting event, but as a cultural force that shaped the way Greeks thought about honor, community, and human potential. For starters, the Games reinforced the concept of arete, excellence, the pursuit of one's highest potential. Winning was celebrated, yes, but striving was equally revered. Every athlete, even those who fell short, embodied the ideal of human effort. The Greeks didn't just admire physical strength. They admired courage, skill, and the ability to test oneself against others and against personal limits. Olympia became the stage where these ideals were performed, visible to everyone, and remembered for generations. The Games also promoted unity among the city-states, at least temporarily. Consider the Ekakyria, the sacred truce declared during the Olympics. Wars were paused, conflicts set aside, so that athletes and spectators could travel safely to Olympia. This truce was no small gesture. It signaled that, despite political rivalries, there were moments where Greek identity and shared values transcended local allegiances. Even if Sparta and Athens were mortal enemies, their athletes competed on the same grounds, under the same rules, and before the same gods. The Games reminded the Greeks that they were part of a larger cultural tapestry. And yet, the Olympics also highlighted social hierarchies. Wealthy city-states could send more athletes, build treasuries, and erect statues. Only free men could compete. Women, slaves, and non-Greeks were excluded from participation in most events, though exceptions existed, like Kaniska. Success at Olympia was a way to display not just personal excellence, but the power, prestige, and sophistication of one's city. The Games were political as much as they were athletic. Victories were celebrated as victories for the polis itself. Religion was another fundamental layer. Olympia was sacred ground, home to the massive statue of Zeus and the many temples and altars scattered throughout the sanctuary. Every race, throw, or fight was framed as an offering to the gods. Sacrifices, prayers, and rituals intertwined with the competition, reminding participants and spectators alike that human skill was always in dialogue with divine favor. The games became a space where the mortal and divine converged, where glory on earth reflected a kind of spiritual acknowledgement. The social aspect was equally powerful. Olympia was a gathering place for Greeks from all walks of life. Traders, philosophers, poets, spectators, and athletes mingled. Ideas circulated alongside olive oil and bread. Political alliances could be observed, debated, and sometimes forged. The games were like a festival, a marketplace, a council, and a theater all rolled into one. For a few days every 4 years, Olympia became the beating heart of Greek civilization. The cultural influence extended beyond just the Greeks who attended. Stories of victories and defeats were immortalized in poetry, sculpture, and oral history. Statues of victorious athletes were erected, inscriptions immortalized names, and poets like Pindar composed odes celebrating human excellence. These artistic and literary legacies reinforced the moral and aesthetic ideals of the society, showing future generations what it meant to strive, to honor the gods, and to embody excellence. Education also intersected with the games. Gymnasiums weren't just training grounds. They were schools of mind and body. Philosophy, rhetoric, music, and physical training coexisted. Athletes trained not just to win, but to grow as citizens. Olympia was an extension of this philosophy, a public classroom where courage, skill, and moral virtue were tested in a very real and visible way. Spectators learned from the athletes' conduct. Competitors learned from their own successes and failures. Virtue was taught through action, not lecture. The games even shaped identity and memory. In a time without mass media, word of mouth, poetry, and inscriptions were crucial. A single victory could immortalize an athlete. Families, city-states, and entire regions took pride in the achievements of their champions. The emotional resonance of victory, the honor, the awe, the envy, rippled through society. It reinforced social bonds, inspired youth, and cemented the values of courage, discipline, and perseverance. There's a subtle but profound point here. The Olympics normalized competition as a moral and cultural framework. Greeks learned that striving against others was noble, not merely selfish. Losing with dignity was as valuable as winning. Fairness, courage, respect, and perseverance became societal virtues, encoded in the shared ritual of the games. Even spectators absorbed lessons in ethics and human potential simply by witnessing the competitions. Finally, the games were about memory. Everything in Olympia, the races, the sacrifices, the victories, the defeats, was recorded, remembered, and celebrated. This insistence on memory reinforced cultural continuity. Every generation of Greeks could look back, learn from the past, and aspire to greatness. The Olympic Games were as much about collective memory as individual achievement. So when we think about Olympia, it isn't just a field of competition. It is a crucible of civilization. It molds athletes and spectators alike, tests skill, courage, and endurance. It celebrates triumph and teaches humility. It strengthens city-states, unites strangers, and honors gods, preserves memory. It shapes identity. And in that sense, every race, every throw, every grapple, every chariot while spinning across the dust of Olympia wasn't just a contest. It was a lesson in life, society, and human potential. By understanding how the games shaped Greek society, we begin to see why they mattered so much. They were more than entertainment. They were a sacred mirror, reflecting the ideals, struggles, and aspirations of an entire civilization. Athletes competed, spectators watched, gods were honored, and history was written. And perhaps, as night falls and the valley cools, the true significance of Olympia is revealed. The games endure not because of trophies or fame, but because they capture the human spirit at its most noble, daring, and unforgettable. Chapter 13: The Role of Women and Non-Citizens in the Olympics. When most people imagine the ancient Olympics, they picture men running, throwing, wrestling, and racing chariots. And yes, participation was overwhelmingly male. But the story is more nuanced. Women and non-citizens were part of the Olympic world, even if in indirect or limited ways. Understanding their role gives us a deeper picture of Olympia and its social dynamics. First, women. In most events, married women were forbidden from attending the games, under penalty of death. Why? The ancient Greeks believed that seeing male athletes competing naked could provoke temptation, disrupt social order, or disrespect the gods. Yet women still found ways to engage with the Olympics as spectators, poets, trainers, and even occasional competitors in chariot racing. Take Caniska, for example, a Spartan princess, wealthy and determined. She entered her own chariot team into the Olympic chariot race. Her horses won, and though Caniska herself did not drive the chariot, she became the first woman recorded as an Olympic victor. Her triumph is fascinating because it shows how influence, strategy, and wealth allowed women to navigate around societal restrictions. The Olympics, while male-dominated, had cracks through which female ambition and cleverness could shine. Unmarried women, called parthenoi, were sometimes allowed to attend specific festivals, like the Heraia, which were foot races dedicated to the goddess Hera. These races were entirely for women, emphasizing speed and skill, and they celebrated female athleticism in its own sacred context. So while the main Olympic events were largely inaccessible, women had their own spaces to participate, and these spaces mattered culturally. They reinforced ideals of competition, excellence, and piety in ways that echoed the male games. Now let's consider non-citizens. The Olympics were open to free Greek men, but non-Greeks or metics, foreigners, and slaves were excluded from competing. Yet their presence was felt everywhere. Traders, artisans, and spectators from distant regions came to Olympia. They sold goods, shared news, observed events, and sometimes even trained athletes. In a sense, they were part of the Olympic ecosystem, contributing to the festival's vibrancy, economy, and cultural exchange. These spectators also carried stories back to their cities. Even if they could not compete, they transmitted the legend of Olympia far and wide. They ensured that the Games were not just a local event but a pan-Hellenic experience. The Olympics became a unifying thread across Greek-speaking regions, connecting city-states and people through shared ritual, even when participation was unequal. Another point to consider: trainers and coaches. They often included slaves or non-citizens. These individuals were essential to training programs, managing logistics, and ensuring athletes were ready to compete. Their labor, skill, and guidance were critical to the very success that the Olympic victors would enjoy. Without them, many champions could never have reached the sacred grounds of Olympia. Women and non-citizens also participated indirectly in the cultural life surrounding the Games. Poets, sculptors, and musicians often included women and foreigners in their works. Commemorative statues, victory odes, and festival songs celebrated human skill and spirit, sometimes acknowledging the contributions of those who would otherwise remain in the shadows. Olympia was not only about athletic prowess but also about storytelling, memory, and culture. Everyone who touched the Games, directly or indirectly, played a part in its legacy. Emotionally, being excluded from direct competition must have been complex. Imagine a woman in the crowd, watching her husband, brother, or son compete, proud but powerless to take the field herself. Imagine a skilled athlete, free but from a distant land, watching others earn glory they could never claim. Yet, even in exclusion, engagement was meaningful. The Games were about community as much as competition, and spectatorship offered its own form of honor and emotional connection. There's also subtle empowerment in strategy and influence. Wealthy women like Caniska could claim fame through ownership, decisions, and planning. Artisans and coaches could influence outcomes from behind the scenes. Even if they were invisible in the official record, their contributions shaped the Games. Olympia was thus a complex web of visibility, participation, and legacy. Victory might appear public, but effort, skill, and influence flowed in multiple directions, often unseen. And here's the fascinating part. The very exclusions imposed by society sometimes created innovation. Women and non-citizens found creative ways to participate. As spectators, patrons, poets, trainers, and through those roles, they left a mark. Olympia was not a static institution. It evolved socially, culturally, and politically. Every participant, in body or spirit, shaped it. By the end of the festival, whether through direct competition or indirect influence, everyone involved, male, female, citizen, or foreigner, contributed to the ritual heartbeat of Olympia. They reinforced social norms, challenged them, or worked quietly within their constraints to leave a legacy. This layered participation adds richness to the story of the Games, showing that ancient society, while hierarchical, was also inventive, adaptive, and full of human complexity. So, when we remember Olympia, it's important to look beyond the men crossing the finish line or raising olive wreaths. Look also at those in the shadows, the women, the non-citizens, the trainers, the poets, the artisans. They all shaped the experience, the culture, and the enduring memory of the Games. They remind us that even in ancient traditions, influence is rarely limited to those in the spotlight. In the quiet night, after dust settles and torches dim, Olympia holds echoes of every voice, every effort, and every story. The Games were a stage, yes, but also a living organism, social, cultural, and emotional. Everyone, in some way, mattered, and that, perhaps, is why the Olympics remain timeless. They were more than competition. They were humanity at its most ambitious, intricate, and communal. Chapter 14: Legacy of the Games. How ancient Olympia lives on. The sun has set over Olympia, the dust has settled, and the torches have flickered out. The crowds have gone home, leaving only echoes of cheers, footsteps, and whispered stories behind. And yet, even as the physical games come to an end, their impact endures. The legacy of the ancient Olympics is more than medals, more than olive wreaths. It is a story of humanity, culture, and memory, one that continues to inspire thousands of years later. First, consider memory. The Greeks were obsessed with remembrance. Every victory, every defeat, every remarkable feat was recorded in poems, inscriptions, and statues. Victors' names were etched into stone. Stories of courage and perseverance were told and retold. Even those who did not win were remembered for their effort and skill. Olympia was not just a sporting arena. It was a library of human potential, a place where the deeds of men and women, directly or indirectly involved, were celebrated and preserved. This obsession with legacy influenced culture far beyond the stadium. Poets like Pindar composed odes praising athletes, their cities, and the gods. Sculptors created statues that captured the tension of a wrestler mid-throw or the grace of a runner mid-stride. These works were not just art. They were teaching tools, moral examples, and cultural touchstones. They reminded everyone who saw them that striving, courage, and excellence were virtues worth pursuing. The Games also left a political and social imprint. City-states sent athletes to compete not only for personal glory but for the prestige of their polis. Victories brought pride, recognition, and influence. Athens celebrated its champions, Sparta flaunted its warriors, and even distant colonies felt the ripple of victory across the Greek world. Olympia became a stage where politics, identity, and cultural influence intertwined seamlessly with sport. A race won here could echo across the Mediterranean, shaping perceptions of power, skill, and honor. Even the architecture and infrastructure of Olympia reflect the Games' enduring legacy. Temples, altars, and stadiums were constructed with care, using techniques and artistry that inspired generations of builders. The very layout of the sanctuary encouraged ritual, observation, and community. Every stone, every column, every path was designed to elevate both competition and contemplation. Olympia was not only a place to test the body but also a place to nurture the mind, spirit, and society. The moral and emotional lessons of the Games endure as well. The ancient Olympics taught resilience, courage, fairness, and humility. Athletes learned to face fear, to manage triumph and disappointment, and to respect rivals as well as gods. Spectators learned to appreciate effort as much as outcome. The events offered a living model of ethical behavior, teaching values that extended into everyday life. Even in defeat, competitors could find honor. Even in victory, humility remained essential. These lessons resonate even today, proving that sport is about more than physical achievement. It is a medium for personal and societal growth. The influence of Olympia spread far beyond Greece. Roman writers, historians, and emperors adopted aspects of Greek competition, architecture, and celebration. Centuries later, during the Renaissance and Enlightenment, European scholars studied Greek athletic ideals, inspiring modern sporting events and physical education. And in the 19th century, when the modern Olympic Games were revived, organizers explicitly looked to Olympia for inspiration. The spirit of competition, ritual, and excellence was resurrected for a new era. Think about the modern Olympics for a moment. Athletes today still chase glory, challenge themselves, and seek to honor their nations. The world watches with collective fascination. Stories of triumph, heartbreak, and perseverance dominate media coverage. And while the arenas are different, massive stadiums with millions of spectators, electronic timing, and global broadcasting, the essence remains remarkably similar to ancient Olympia. Human courage, effort, and aspiration continue to inspire admiration across borders, just as they did millennia ago. Even today, the site of Olympia itself tells stories. Ruins of temples and altars, fragments of statues, and remnants of stadiums allow visitors to step into history. You can walk along the stadium track, imagining the pounding of thousands of feet, feel the heat of the sun on your skin, hear the imagined cheers of crowds. These physical traces provide a direct, tangible link to the emotions, struggles, and triumphs of ancient competitors. In a way, the echoes of Olympia live in the very earth, waiting for those willing to remember and reflect. The legacy also extends into culture and imagination. Writers, filmmakers, and educators continue to draw inspiration from Olympia. Stories of ancient athletes, chariot races, wrestling matches, and pentathlons spark curiosity, wonder, and even humor. The games remain fertile ground for exploring human nature, ambition, fear, perseverance, pride, and humility, in ways that are universal and timeless. Ultimately, what makes the legacy of Olympia remarkable is its multi-layered impact. It is athletic, social, cultural, moral, and spiritual. It shaped individuals, communities, and civilizations. It celebrated human potential while acknowledging divine mystery. It honored excellence while teaching humility. And most importantly, it reminds us that the pursuit of greatness is timeless. So, when you think of Olympia, picture more than races or victories. Picture a valley alive with emotion, strategy, courage, and hope. Picture athletes pushing themselves beyond fear, spectators sharing wonder, and societies drawing lessons in honor, perseverance, and virtue. Picture the enduring memory of those who dared to compete, and those who dared to watch, teach, or support them. In that sense, Olympia is alive, not in the dust of its ruins or the echoes of past crowds alone, but in the human heart, the same heart that races, strains, hopes, and dreams, even today. And that is the ultimate legacy. A reminder that excellence, courage, and the desire to be remembered are as relevant now as they were 2,500 years ago. Chapter 15. Why the ancient Olympics still matter today. Even after thousands of years, the ancient Olympic Games continue to capture our imagination. They are more than ruins in a sun-drenched valley or dusty stories in old books. They are living lessons in courage, perseverance, human potential, and the pursuit of excellence. And perhaps most importantly, they remind us why we compete, strive, and dream even today. The first reason the ancient Olympics matter is human inspiration. Think about the athletes of Olympia. Men and women, young and old, facing challenges that tested every part of their being, body, mind, and spirit. They trained in the heat, sweat dripping into their eyes. They battled fear, pain, and doubt. They raced, wrestled, threw, and strategized with everything they had. They did not compete for money or fame as we often do today. They competed for honor, for glory, for the chance to etch their name into memory. Watching their courage inspires us to push ourselves, to test our limits, and to face challenges even when the odds are daunting. Then there is the moral and ethical dimension. The games were not just about physical prowess. They emphasized fairness, respect, and honor, both toward competitors and toward the gods. Losing was not shameful if one competed with dignity. Winning was not only about skill but also about humility. These values resonate strongly today. In sports, in work, and in life, integrity and respect remain as important as talent or strength. Olympia reminds us that how we compete often matters more than whether we win. The ancient Olympics also teach community and connection. During the Games, city-states put aside conflicts, and people from across Greece gathered to celebrate shared culture and human achievement. Spectators and athletes alike experienced a profound sense of unity. Today, international sporting events echo this same principle. The Olympics, World Cups, and other global competitions bring people together across borders, languages, and cultures. They remind us that competition can be a bridge, not a barrier. Another key lesson is resilience in the face of challenge. Ancient competitors faced extreme conditions: brutal sun, intense physical strain, and unforgiving competition. Many fell, many failed, yet they returned again year after year to test themselves anew. Their persistence teaches us that failure is not final. Every misstep is a lesson, every setback a chance to grow stronger. Life, like the Games, is about showing up, even when the odds seem impossible. The aesthetic and cultural legacy is also enduring. Art, poetry, sculpture, and architecture from Olympia continue to inspire creativity. Modern artists and storytellers draw from these ancient ideals to create new narratives. Sports photography, cinematic depictions of athletic struggle, and literature all echo the drama, emotion, and beauty that the ancient Greeks first captured. Olympia was a theater of human spirit, and that theater lives on in every story of struggle and triumph. Emotionally, the Games remind us of the intensity of human experience. Ancient athletes felt fear, joy, pain, pride, shame, hope, and exhilaration, sometimes all in a single moment. Modern audiences experience the same emotional highs and lows while watching competitions today. We cheer, gasp, cry, and celebrate as if we were in the arena ourselves. The Games are a mirror, reflecting our own desires, anxieties, and aspirations. They teach empathy, admiration, and the beauty of shared experience. The Olympics also reinforce the pursuit of excellence as a lifelong value. Ancient Greeks competed not just for medals or fame, but to embody their best selves, to reach for arete. And that principle is timeless. Whether in academics, art, science, or sport, striving for one's personal best remains a fundamental human aspiration. Olympia shows us that the pursuit itself is meaningful, regardless of external reward. Finally, the Games endure because of memory and legacy. Ancient victories and defeats were recorded in stone, in poetry, and in communal recollection. Today, the modern Olympic Games continue this tradition, creating stories that inspire generations. Every athlete who competes, whether in ancient Olympia or modern Tokyo or Paris, contributes to a chain of human effort, courage, and memory stretching across millennia. As we reflect on Olympia, we realize that the ancient Olympics are more than history. They are a lens through which we can view our own values, our communities, and our potential. They remind us that competition is not only about winning, but about courage, honor, and striving to be better. They remind us that even in struggle, beauty and meaning can be found. And they remind us that human achievement, when witnessed, celebrated, and remembered, becomes something larger than ourselves. So, as you close your eyes and drift into sleep tonight, imagine the dust of Olympia under your feet, the roar of the crowd in your ears, and the sweat and effort of athletes long gone. Feel their courage, their hope, their triumphs and defeats. In that quiet reflection, you touch the heart of the ancient games, a pulse that still beats, still inspires, and still matters. The ancient Olympics live on. In every race, every challenge, every test of courage and skill. In every moment we strive for our best selves. In every story we tell of human effort and resilience. And that, perhaps, is the most enduring legacy of all. That striving, struggling, and dreaming are timeless human virtues, just as alive today as they were 2,500 years ago in the Valley of Olympia. Chapter 16 Epilogue. The Spirit of Olympia in Today's World. Even after centuries, the spirit of Olympia refuses to fade. The ancient games, with their dust, sweat, cheers, and sacred rituals, live on in ways both tangible and invisible. And perhaps the most remarkable thing about the Olympics, ancient or modern, is that they are never just about sport. They are about what it means to be human. Imagine stepping into Olympia one last time in your mind. The valley stretches before you, sunlight glinting off the olive trees. The stadium hums with excitement, the air thick with anticipation. You can feel the rhythm of countless footsteps that have come before you, the tension of moments before races, the collective breath held in awe of strength and skill. Here, the air itself seems alive. Now, think about the athletes. Men and women, citizens and non-citizens, some visible, some behind the scenes, all striving to test themselves. They are tired, they are anxious, and they are exhilarated. Every heartbeat carries the weight of hope, fear, and pride. And yet, through all this, there is beauty, the beauty of effort, of human courage, of striving. That same spirit exists today. Every runner lacing up their shoes, every gymnast stepping onto a mat, every swimmer diving into a pool, is connected to that same pulse that ran through Olympia 2,500 years ago. Every athlete faces fear, trains tirelessly, experiences triumph and disappointment. The setting may be different, the rules modernized, but the essence remains the same. Testing limits, honoring effort, and inspiring others. The epilogue of Olympia is also about connection. Ancient spectators felt awe, pride, and joy watching their champions perform. Today, millions of spectators around the world watch modern athletes, experiencing those same emotions. We cheer for skill, gasp at daring feats, and feel the weight of human potential in moments of triumph. Olympia taught that achievement is amplified when witnessed. The games remind us that we are not alone in our striving, that collective experience matters. And there's another layer, reflection. Olympia encourages us to look inward. What can we learn from the courage of those athletes? From their resilience, discipline, and humility? From their willingness to risk failure for the chance to achieve greatness? Life may not always have medals or wreaths, but it does have challenges that demand courage, effort, and focus. The spirit of Olympia whispers that striving itself is meaningful, that every attempt, every challenge faced, every fear confronted adds to the story of who we are. Even failure has its place. Ancient athletes who lost learned lessons that were as valuable as the trophies of victors. Today, we can see that the same principle holds. Every misstep, every disappointment, every moment of doubt is an opportunity to grow. Olympia teaches that honor comes not just from winning, but from facing the struggle honestly and fully. The cultural legacy also continues. Art, literature, film, and storytelling all draw from the mythology and history of Olympia. The games inspire creativity, imagination, and reflection. They remind us that human achievement is worth celebrating, that courage is worth honoring, and that stories of effort and excellence deserve to be told. Again and again. Perhaps most importantly, Olympia reminds us of shared humanity. The athletes, spectators, and gods of ancient Greece may feel distant, but the emotions, struggles, and triumphs are timeless. Fear, hope, pride, joy, and sorrow, they are the same now as they were then. To feel awe at a sprinter crossing the finish line, to cheer for a gymnast landing a perfect flip, to recognize courage and resilience in oneself or others. These are human experiences that bridge millennia. And so, the epilogue of Olympia is a meditation on courage, on memory, on community, on striving for excellence, on the quiet, persistent heartbeat of human potential. The games were never just contests. They were mirrors, reflecting the best and most fragile parts of what it means to be human. They were lessons in living fully, ethically, and courageously. As night falls over our imagined Olympia, the torches burn low. Athletes rest, crowds depart, and the valley grows still. And yet, if you listen closely, you can hear echoes. The rhythm of footfalls, the gasp of spectators, the silent heartbeat of human courage. That rhythm continues in every challenge we face, in every dream we chase, in every moment we dare to test our limits. The ancient Olympics live on, not just in history books or ruins, but in the choices we make, the courage we summon, and the effort we honor. They teach us that striving matters, that witnessing matters, and that memory matters. That is the final gift of Olympia. A reminder that human excellence is timeless, fragile, and profoundly worth celebrating. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, let the spirit of Olympia settle in your mind. Imagine the dust of the track beneath your feet, the roar of the crowd, the triumphs and defeats, the courage and perseverance. Know that every time you try, you connect with that timeless pulse. That spirit whispers one final truth. To live fully, to strive bravely, and to honor effort is, in itself, a victory. Chapter 17 Lessons from Olympia for Everyday Life. By now, we've wandered through Olympia's dusty stadiums, felt the sweat and adrenaline of athletes long gone, and seen how the games shaped society, culture, and human spirit. But what does all of this mean for us, sitting in the modern world, far from olive groves and sand-filled arenas? The answer is simple. The spirit of Olympia has lessons for everyday life, lessons about courage, effort, resilience, and connection. Let's start with courage. Imagine athletes running the stadium or wrestling in the dust, every muscle screaming, knowing a misstep could mean failure or injury. Fear was real, and yet they ran anyway. Today, life has its own Olympic challenges. Tough conversations, deadlines, personal goals, or moments when we must step outside our comfort zone. The courage of ancient athletes reminds us that fear is natural, but it's not a reason to stop. True courage is showing up anyway, even if your knees shake or your palms sweat. Next is effort and discipline. Ancient competitors trained for years. Early mornings, harsh conditions, repetition, and sacrifice. Talent alone rarely suffices. Effort shapes skill, resilience, and confidence. Modern life may look different. Studying, practicing a skill, or completing a challenging project. But the principle is the same. Steady, focused effort compounds into excellence. Olympia teaches that daily work, even when tedious, is the invisible foundation of achievement. Resilience is another lesson. Imagine losing a pentathlon by a single point or watching your chariot crash near the finish. Setbacks are inevitable. Ancient athletes returned, trained again, and tried anew. Life mirrors this principle constantly. Failures, disappointments, and mistakes are part of the journey. What matters is how we respond. Giving up ends the story. Rising, learning, and trying again continues it. Resilience, the courage to persist, is a victory in itself. Humility also matters. Even the greatest champions knew winning one day did not make them immortal. Success was intertwined with timing, help, or circumstance. Humility doesn't diminish achievement. It keeps us grounded, allows learning, and strengthens relationships. Ancient athletes wore olive wreaths but carried humility alongside pride. A lesson still relevant today. Community and connection were central to Olympia. The games weren't only for the athletes. They were for spectators, families, trainers, and artisans. Everyone played a role. Spectators inspired athletes. Families celebrated victories. Poets and sculptors immortalized feats. Modern life may feel isolating, but connection remains essential. Encouraging someone, sharing effort, or celebrating another's success strengthens not just them but the wider community. Olympia teaches that shared human experience enriches life beyond what individual achievement can offer. Another lesson is embracing success and failure with grace. Ancient Greeks valued effort, courage, and honorable conduct as much as victory. Life is rarely linear. There are ups and downs, wins and losses, moments of pride and doubt. How we navigate these moments matters. Treating ourselves and others with empathy and respect during both triumph and disappointment is part of living well. Reflection and learning were key too. After every event, athletes rested and considered strategy, technique, and mindset. Reflection allowed growth. Today, reflection is just as valuable. Journaling, quiet thought, or discussion helps us understand our actions, adjust our approach, and grow wiser. Olympia shows that growth is not only about doing, but about understanding and learning from each step we take. Balance is another enduring lesson. Pentathlons demanded speed, strength, skill, and strategy. Chariot racing required risk management, courage, and control. Life is similar. Success is rarely about excelling in only one area. Physical health, mental focus, emotional resilience, and social connection must coexist. Olympia teaches that balance in effort, emotion, and priorities leads to sustainable achievement and fulfillment. Preparation and patience are essential too. Ancient athletes didn't become champions overnight. They trained for years. Understanding mastery requires time. Modern life offers many shortcuts and instant results temptations, but real skill and meaningful success come from patience and steady effort. Olympia reminds us that meaningful achievement grows slowly, nurtured by consistent work and persistence. Finally, the games teach the value of legacy. Ancient victories were recorded in stone, poetry, and memory. Every effort, act of courage, and display of skill contributed to a larger story. Similarly, our choices today leave ripples. The kindness we show, the courage we summon, and the challenges we face create an impact that lasts beyond ourselves. Legacy is not only about fame. It's about influence, inspiration, and memory. In essence, Olympia's lessons are timeless because they are human. Courage, effort, resilience, humility, connection, reflection, balance, patience, and legacy. These are qualities we can cultivate in daily life. Whether pursuing a career, learning a new skill, nurturing relationships, or simply striving to improve ourselves, we are walking a path parallel to those ancient athletes. Their sweat, struggles, triumphs, and defeats echo in every effort we make today. So, as you settle in for sleep tonight, close your eyes and imagine Olympia. The stadium bathed in sunlight, dust rising from athletes' feet, tension in the air, and the silent presence of gods watching. Let the courage, perseverance, and humility of those long-ago athletes sink in. Know that every small effort, every brave step, every moment you try again, carries a spark of that timeless Olympic spirit. Because Olympia is not just history. It is a guide, a teacher, a whisper across centuries, reminding us to live fully, strive bravely, and honor effort. Every challenge we face, every dream we pursue, and every lesson we carry forward connects us to that enduring human spirit. And as sleep embraces you, take comfort in knowing that the courage, determination, and spirit of Olympia are quietly present, inspiring your dreams tonight and your actions tomorrow. Chapter 18, The Final Reflection. Carrying Olympia's Spirit Forward. Here we are at the very end of our journey through ancient Olympia. The sun has long set over the olive trees, the stadiums lie empty, and the echoes of cheering crowds fade into memory. Yet the spirit of the games lingers, in the wind that sweeps across the valley, in the stones of the stadium, and in the hearts of anyone willing to listen. This is our final reflection, a chance to carry the lessons of Olympia forward into our modern lives and perhaps into our dreams tonight. First, let's remember what the games really celebrated. It wasn't just speed, strength, or skill. It was courage, the courage to try, to challenge oneself, and to step into the arena even when the outcome was uncertain. Ancient athletes ran knowing they might fall, wrestled knowing they might lose, hurled the javelin knowing it could miss its mark. And yet, they tried anyway. That is a lesson that transcends time. Life will always contain uncertainty, but bravery isn't about guaranteeing success. Bravery is about daring to step forward anyway. Then there is effort and perseverance. The champions of Olympia didn't become legends overnight. They trained in the sun, pushed their bodies to exhaustion, and endured countless setbacks. Modern life may not demand wrestling in sand or racing in the stadium, but the principle is the same. Every skill we cultivate, every goal we chase, every challenge we face requires consistent effort. Small steps compound into growth. Olympia reminds us that what seems ordinary, daily practice, persistence, preparation, is the invisible backbone of extraordinary achievement. Resilience is another gift of the games. Every athlete who lost learned something, and everyone who succeeded faced the possibility of future failure. In life, setbacks are inevitable. Missed opportunities, failures, disappointments, or unfulfilled dreams. Yet the games show us that resilience transforms those experiences into lessons. We rise, we reflect, and we try again. Defeat, when met with courage, becomes fuel for future triumph. We must also remember humility and respect. Ancient victors understood that success was never absolute. It could be challenged, stolen by fortune, or matched by a stronger competitor next time. Olympia teaches that humility doesn't diminish achievement. It keeps us grounded, teaches gratitude, and deepens our respect for others. Every win is intertwined with luck, support, and the effort of those around us. Carrying humility forward means recognizing our achievements while honoring the contributions and struggles of others. Connection and community were at the heart of Olympia. The games were not only for athletes. Families, coaches, spectators, poets, and artisans all shared in the experience. Today, life is richer when we share effort, celebrate victories together, and support each other through challenges. Even when we strive individually, the energy of others inspires us, and our courage inspires them in turn. Olympia reminds us that we are never truly alone in our journey. There is also the lesson of reflection and learning. Ancient athletes paused to think, to adjust, to understand what worked and what didn't. Today, reflection is no less essential. Taking time to consider our actions, refine our skills, and learn from mistakes ensures that every experience, victory or defeat, becomes meaningful. Life is a constant cycle of effort, reflection, and growth. Olympia teaches us that reflection is not passive. It is a tool for self-mastery. Balance is key too. The pentathlon demanded speed, strength, skill, and strategy. Chariot races required courage, control, and calculated risk. Life is similar. Success rarely comes from excelling in only one area. Emotional well-being, relationships, health, creativity, and learning all need attention. Olympia shows us that balance, in effort, emotion, and priorities, leads to sustainable fulfillment. Preparation and patience are essential threads in this story. Ancient athletes understood mastery takes time, often years. Modern life tempts us with shortcuts, instant results, or viral fame. But true achievement grows gradually, nurtured by dedication, patience, and steady effort. The games teach us that lasting success is built on persistent, careful work, not fleeting shortcuts. Finally, there is the lesson of legacy. Every throw, race, or wrestling match at Olympia was more than a contest. It was a story, a memory, a mark left on the world. Similarly, every choice we make, every act of courage or kindness, leaves a ripple. Legacy is not only about fame or wealth. It is about influence, inspiration, and memory, the ways our lives touch others, even quietly. Olympia teaches that what we leave behind is as important as what we achieve in the moment. As we reflect on all these lessons, courage, effort, resilience, humility, connection, reflection, balance, patience, and legacy, it becomes clear that Olympia was never just about sport. It was a mirror of human potential, a celebration of striving, and a guide for living fully. The games remind us that challenge is meaningful, effort is noble, and every act of bravery, however small, matters. So as you settle into the quiet of the night, let your imagination wander back to Olympia. Picture the sun-warmed stones beneath your feet, the distant roar of the crowd, the dust rising from countless athletes' footsteps, and the olive wreaths waiting at the finish line. Feel the courage, determination, and perseverance that flowed through the games, and know that those same qualities can flow through you, in your life, in your choices, and in your dreams. The spirit of Olympia lives not only in history books or ruins, but in every moment we strive to be our best selves. In every challenge we face, every dream we pursue, and every lesson we carry forward, the heartbeat of the games continues. And perhaps, as you drift into sleep, that heartbeat whispers one final truth. Life itself is an arena. Every effort is meaningful, and striving with courage and integrity is a victory worthy of memory. So, take these lessons with you. Run your own race, wrestle with your challenges, throw your best javelin in whatever pursuit you choose, and always honor effort, humility, and connection. The torch of Olympia has been passed through millennia. Tonight, it flickers quietly in your hands, ready to guide you through your own life's games. And with that, the final echoes of Olympia fade softly into the night, leaving only one enduring message. Strive bravely, act with honor, and let your spirit carry the timeless heartbeat of the games wherever you go.